Hello.
All right. I had multiple tabs open, so
Okay.
I'm back.
All right. Are we live?
Yep.
Yep. Cool.
You will leave.
Well, I know that. Are we still waiting for Kian? Is he coming?
Kian couldn't make it, so we are a dynamic duo.
Okay. Well,
this
hey,
evening, this morning, wherever you are in the world. Yeah.
This is a perfect time for the dynamic duo. One of the things that I have not mentioned enough is the check your stake feature from Talisman. And I don't have the graphic right here, but I'll get the link and drop it in the chat. There is 29,000 wallets that are currently in our ecosystem that are staked but are not earning rewards. So with this interface, you can go on there, click on the link, connect your wallet. If you have anything, oh, thank you so much, Agile, for dropping that in the chat for us. And you can actually check your stake and see if there's any rewards that you can claim. So it's a great feature. Talisman's always adding things. And so as a very happy Talisman user, I know I'm earning stake because I'm in the Kusama Kingdom pool, but thanks to Will and for setting that up. But I'll get out of your way and let you guys talk about this. I think it's going to be a really interesting topic because it's something that we hear a lot about. Is it going to just inflate away with all this inflation that we have in Polkadot? So thank you guys for being here and looking forward to the chat.
Absolutely. Thanks, Funky. So staking is one of the most engaged with use cases in the Polkadot ecosystem, if not the most engaged with kind of use case. So the event programmers and I thought that it would be really relevant to make some space for the topic, kind of demystify some of the concepts that already exist, demystify some of the concepts that are going to be introduced to staking, and make space for ridiculous questions like, could Polkadot ever hyperinflate into Oblivion? What are the set of network conditions that could allow that to happen? And I'm joined by Will, or Paradox, who is kind of omnipresent in the ecosystem, you could say. Will, do you want to give a short introduction on all the things that you do?
Sure. Well, guys, my name is Will. I go by the nickname Paradox. I'm a former council member. Only today, the Kusama Council was officially dissolved, pallet removed. I'm an ambassador. I'm on the anti-scam team. I'm on a mod team. I'm a validator. I operate ParaNodes. I also work at Lucky Friday, who also have nodes. So stake everyone, right? Select us. Yeah, so I'm overall enthusiast. I love the tech. I try my best to use any of my free time to ramp up knowledge and yeah, hopefully soon do some coding.
Lovely. And Will, you were also the person that reminded me of something a few weeks ago, and that was the concept of non-interactive staking. And it might be a new concept to a lot of the listeners here because it's a new concept to the Polkadot ecosystem. Are you able to give a quick rundown or an explanation of what your understanding of non-interactive staking is and what it aims to achieve, and maybe when we can expect to see it in the ecosystem?
On chain, right?
Yeah.
So there was like a manifestation of this before, something called gilts, right? Which is very similar to non-interactive staking that we have now, except for non-interactive staking has a receipt, right? And if I recall correctly, that receipt is in the form of an NFT, right? So what is non-interactive staking? I think just to make it very easy, it's like a bond, right? It's long-term, right? You are not subjected to slashing as you would if you were staking. So you can essentially have your tokens earn some reward that's not as much as staking, because staking there's a risk, right? And you'll just have like a longer lockup period. There is a different process. You can't just participate on a whim. There would be like a bidding process. And those who are probably meeting that criteria of more lockup and probably larger bond size would probably have like a better bid. Yeah, so it's a process of locking tokens with little less risk you do get a receipt that you can probably use in a clever way. I guess that's where the DeFi guys will come in, right? So yeah, it could appeal to some people who like these kind of things. Yeah, less risk adverse people.
Right. So alongside running a validator yourself, if you're
Mhm.
really technically inclined, being a nominator and
Mhm.
nominating up to 16 validators and then kind of managing that position or joining
Sure.
a pool. These are the three ways you can currently kind of put your DOT to work in the ecosystem. There is now going to be a fourth option available to users at some point in the future, pending testing and runtime upgrades and that kind of a thing, called non-interactive staking. And this is a place where you can bid and get access to the opportunity to deposit. And then you receive an NFT in return as the receipt for the deposit. And what rewards can you expect to earn
So you
in this
will
position as opposed to kind of the existing set of opportunities?
compared to staking, right?
Yeah.
So those dynamics I don't have the exact numbers for, but you will be earning something to counter inflation. So there will be some earning. It will be less than staking, right? So you're someplace less than staking, but you're still earning something, but you don't have that risk of slashing that you would have in if you were contributing to the security of the chain.
That's correct. My understanding, and this is only my understanding, so we're going to have to check this, is that it will keep pace with inflation. So you're
That's my
saying,
understanding as well.
yeah, so you're saying to the network, here's my DOT or KSM, it's because it's live on Kusama now, as Limo pointed out. I'm not going to kind of expose myself to the risks of being a validator, a nominator in a pool. I'm just going to keep pace with inflation, and I can have a receipt in return for that. And that's an interesting aspect because at this point we have almost like a new financial primitive in the ecosystem where projects new and existing can take this tokenized receipt that represents the position that's keeping pace with inflation. And that's something that can act as like a DeFi primitive. So I'm looking forward to seeing what projects are doing with that and how it can help kind of bootstrap the DeFi ecosystem that's kind of starting to blossom recently.
Yeah. So when I heard about it at first, I likened it to LC dot, like some of the use cases of LC dot, which is like a future return of dot at the end of a crowd loan. So maybe something similar to that, or maybe something more innovative.
Yeah, I do hope that some projects come along and help kind of wrap the concept of interactive staking into something that's really digestible for consumers. So we can have like a Polkadot bonds dashboard, and people that are familiar with the concept of bonds are immediately familiar with the concept of this kind of new primitive, and they don't need to kind of trawl the wiki and look at the jargon of lockup periods and bids and auctions and inflation rates. So that's an area to look out for. And it's live on Kusama at the moment. So if you did want to sniff around on the Substrate DevTools, Polkadot.js apps, whatever you want to call it interface, you can look at the bids and try and enter a position.
Yeah.
So this keeps pace with inflation, and inflation is a topic I did want to touch on because there is a reasonably kind of complex set of kind of economic conditions in the Polkadot ecosystem. You have the the validators, people nominating, the inflation rate. This is all kind of controlled by, there's the treasury, the amount of like the demand for block space is a factor. And then the calculations that go into the staking rewards is also a bit of a black hole. And I'm wondering if there is a set of conditions here. Maybe the demand for block space is low, the price of auctions are lower, and people are hitting the ideal staking rate bang on so that inflation is at its highest point. Is there a set of economic conditions that exists that means that inflation just kind of runs rampant in the Polkadot ecosystem, and we need to really ramp up the demand for block space in order to curb that?
Okay, well, right now the staking rate is kind of fixed at 75%, so I don't think we're in that and I don't think we're going to hit that very soon, right? But ideally, what the chain tries to do is, if it needs to become in a secure position, it attracts people to stake, right, to meet whatever that ideal condition is. And if that ideal condition is oversaturated, then it tries to say, okay, well, probably you guys should take some out of staking and invest in parachains, right? So that's the kind of dynamics that we're looking at. So it does not, I mean, if right now we have very low bid parachains, right?
Yeah.
You know, we're not getting the millions that we were during round one, right? And perhaps those conditions where there are very low bid parachains, and we have a lot of them, right? Again, staking is still fixed at this point. The inflation rate is still fixed. But perhaps if that's the case, and we still have a lot of people staking, and we keep getting close to that ideal 75%, we could see a lot of, we could see more tokens being released to the public via staking than the differential of going into the treasury. So that's an important point to note, that the inflation either goes, this threshold decides whether or not the tokens go to staking or to the treasury, right? But that's still a constant. Yeah.
Yeah. And it does depend on what the governance decides as well. These are parameters that are tweakable via governance proposals and referenda.
Yeah. Well, right now, I think it's part of the runtime, but I digress,
Okay.
right? You know, yeah. So,
Well, in any,
Mhm.
I was going to say, in any case, there are some kind of aspects of the staking system that are not governed by referenda. Things like just the participation rate. And we've seen in the past month, the staking participation rate went from about 48% of all of the DOT that exists is locked up in staking. And then
Oh,
it's like 6th of May, something like that,
yeah, I know what you're
bombed.
referring to.
Yeah, there was like an unbonding of 8% of the total DOT supply in
Mm.
one day. It was kind of remarkable. We've steadily ticked up since then with nomination pools, and the participation in terms of number of accounts is great. But this unbonding event earlier this month was really quite remarkable. And I'm wondering if you have any theories about
Well,
what this
I,
might be. Is this an
I,
entity
I
possibly preparing for OpenGov being launched on
OpenGov.
Kusama, on
Well,
Polkadot?
okay. So I think you're right by saying theory, right? Because everything is just speculation. All right. The last time, it's coincidental, last time Kraken, right? We know now it was Kraken, unstaked a lot of Kusama. You and I had a chat about it on an open forum. So it so happens that we are having a chat on an open forum under like circumstances. So I can only expect that perhaps we will hear some news about some entity downsizing its dot staking in a particular territory, perhaps, right? Much like we saw with Kraken. I think one of the theories that you proposed was whether or not this is individuals gearing up for OpenGov. I'll wait a bit more for that. I think we will see some more on-chain metrics like conviction, voting, delegation, and stuff like that. We should be looking out for those extrinsics once the palette is available. I think that will be a good gauge to let us know who's gearing up, you know, who's flexing, who plans to flex some muscles very soon.
That's true. I think an exchange unbonding a position is probably a more reasonable kind of theory. But until further news, I'm gonna hang my hat on the theory that Hank is back and he's on Polkadot and
Oh my.
he's ready for OpenGov.
Oh my. Well, if that's Hank's position, we're in for some drama on Polkadot. Yeah,
Yeah.
some conservative measures.
But kind of maybe you could say the good news is that the staking participation rate has gradually ticked up since the unbonding event in kind of small increments. And I think that this can be in a large part attributed to nomination pools. You know, nomination pools were launched in November last year. And I don't know the numbers totally. I think it's maybe about 11,000 accounts. But Talisman have helped onboard kind of thousands of wallets into staking positions since nomination pools have come out. And it's been really encouraging to see. It's also something that you're involved in. And I'm wondering, as two pool operators, how we are thinking about the future of this product and ways in which we can operate our pools in the future. There are parallel conversations happening where people are thinking about running automated strategies for the validator nominations. People are looking at running the strategy in like a fat contract or a smart contract, or even saying, let's have a self-governed pool. Could the members of the pool govern amongst themselves to decide which validators the pool are going to nominate?
So on my thoughts, without any statistical analysis, I think that pool participants are generally lazier. They don't want to select validators and so on. So that is like a group. There's a group that just wants to delegate that responsibility. There's also a group that just didn't meet the minimum threshold, right? And these participants may be more interested in selecting validators or having some administrative control or governance of the pool. I think that could get messy, right? But I do believe that people can build communities around their pool and gauge input maybe off chain. I think that might be, reasonable, because I don't know how many active participants there would be given, prior statements. What I would like to see, just going to push this in, there is somewhat of a limitation at this point in time with governance participation of pooled funds, right? I would like to see in the future some way that pool members can still participate in governance. I do believe there's some discussion around that. With instead of transferring funds are locked, right? So it still remains in your account, but there's some lock or something like that, which I think is quite clever. So that is something I look forward to. Pools in governance.
Yeah, I haven't kind of kept up to date with the details on that, but I imagine it would be a bit of a refactor to suddenly say the nomination pools are going to work with locks rather than transfers. So one possible future, which might be a little bit kind of nearer to us conceptually, would be that the pool operators, maybe there's like another role inside of the pool, which acts as like a governance delegation.
Yeah. Yeah, the delegation would have to be, I guess, without conviction, right? But I think it's exciting, right? Because OpenGov requires participation, right? It thrives on participation. But we have funds that keep coming out of that participation pool. So crowd loan, nope, you can't use those. And now nomination pools, you can't use those funds. So I would really like to see more DOT getting put to use. And I think those participants of nomination pools I don't think they should lose their right for governance, to be honest.
Absolutely. And given the nature of pools, where one of the motivations for nomination pools was to allow people with less than the minimum active bond, it's currently like 300 DOT, allow balances below that amount to be able to participate in staking. So the cohort of users in pools represents quite a large community of people that might be new to the network and willing to participate in some of this kind of smaller tracks on OpenGov. So it's important that everyone gets their voice heard, and it's not just people with a larger amount of DOT that can participate in the decision making.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. So I think we're running close to time. So I'll call in MC extraordinaire Funky and see if we can field any questions.
Well, actually, we don't have any questions posted, but the one thing that I will say is just the engagement in the chat when you guys talked about the nomination pool voting seems like that's something that everybody's very keen on. because to your point, that it should allow access to anybody to vote, even if they don't have enough DOT to just stake, on their own. So hopefully, and in fact, Limo even said maybe that's where Kian is right now. He's working on this behind the scenes, and that's why he couldn't be here.
Kian is a very hardworking guy, and he's very clever with his. We're in good hands. Staking, good hands. All good.
Actually, okay, so Beef just asked a question. Won't non-interactive staking reduce network security by decreasing the amount of traditional staking?
You were going to say something, Jonathan? I'll let you go.
Yeah, I don't want to weigh in as an official voice on this, but my understanding is that given that these funds aren't being nominated to a validator that's kind of producing blocks and contributing to security, then we might end up with a large pool of funds that are locked, but they're not kind of contributing to the security of the network. So intuitively, it might have an effect on network security if it's seen as like a really excellent opportunity to participate in non-interactive staking. But yeah, how that happens and what the nuances is a question for another time.
Yeah, well, I just want to add to that. Non-interactive staking is not a free-for-all, right? So there is some management of it at the governance level, if we want to say it for right now. So if it does get into those red zones, we may have no availability of non-interactive staking until we get back into the green.
It's interesting. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, and having this conversation with all of us was very insightful. And I honestly didn't even know about the non-interactive staking because I've just been so busy with all these other things. So I learned something new, which is always a great place to be, at least for a nerd like me. So thank you guys for being here, and looking forward to seeing everybody in the next chat when we have Tommy, aka